Please.
Can you guys chat? No one here should be able to chat. Are you able to chat?
I can chat, I think.
Try chatting.
To everyone in meeting?
You can chat to everyone in meeting? Is that the only option that comes up?
Or each one individually.
That's so weird. I mean, because you're co-host, I guess that's why you can chat.
Probably.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Reichman, how are you? You're on mute.
He knows. He can't unmute right now, but now he can.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna make him a co-host quickly.
Okay, great. How you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your flexibility. I'm so sorry about this.
No, totally understand these things happen. So I'll be on here till 10:20, and you just let me know when you need me to chime in.
Okay. So
sounds great. You're after Yisrael, so it'll be Rabbi Winston, Rabbi
Okay,
Glass.
great. Okay, got it. Perfecto.
Yeah, I'm gonna start letting everyone in if everyone's okay with that.
Great. So I'm gonna mute myself for now.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining and coming out this morning. People are just still coming in, so we're gonna wait just a few more moments until everyone is in here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you once again for joining. We're just going to give a few more minutes for those who are still trickling in at this point, but welcome to the 15th annual YU Medical Ethics Conference, and we'll just begin in a few moments.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Medical Ethics Society Conference at Yeshiva University. My name is Rabbi Yaakov Glasser, and I have the great privilege of serving as the David Mitzner Dean of Yeshiva University's Center for the Jewish Future, and it is my absolute honor to be able to open our program today. Before we begin, I just want to thank the staff at YU, who are incredibly supportive and helpful in putting this program together. Rabbi Rob Shore, Rabbi Dov Winston, for everything they did to help make this program possible. I also want to thank, of course, our president, Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman, whose continued vision, both in terms of developing the leadership within our students, as well as advancing Yeshiva University as a space where we all work to balance and understand the values of Judaism as they relate to our larger experience in the world. His leadership has certainly made possible this and so many other programs and experiences. I also want to thank Dr. Reichman, Rabbi Dr. Reichman, who is with us today, for his incredible time and energy and investment in our student leaders in terms of both this program and the broader mentorship that he provides as well. Most importantly, I want to thank the presidents of the MES board, Yisrael and Daphna, who you will be hearing from certainly during the program a little bit later. Their passion, their devotion, their dedication, their persistence has certainly given rise to the opportunity for us to convene today on such an important and central topic and area of Jewish life for all of us. And they, of course, lead an incredible group of students themselves, vice presidents, conference teams, other members of the MES world, and I'm sure they will share who those people are and thank them appropriately. I also want to thank our speakers for today that are joining us, Dr. Avi Schroeder, Dr. Jonathan Rosenberg, Dr. Hermann Weiss, Dr. Gil Siegel, Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Rimon, and Rabbi Menachem Genek. It is of we have incredible gratitude to all of you. We know you are all incredibly busy and are eminent leaders in this field and in many others. And so we are incredibly appreciative of the time that you are devoting to our program and to our students today. I also want to acknowledge that this medical ethics conference for years was in honor of Rabbi Dr. Moshe Tendler, a pioneer in this entire field of medical ethics, and certainly one who set the tone for our community in how to struggle and how to contend with and how to deal with the balance of Torah values and innovation in the areas of medical life. And of course, over this past year, Litza'arenu, we lost Rabbi Dr. Moshe Tendler, Zatzal. And so this conference continues in his memory, and certainly his imprint is felt in all of us and in the work that continues to happen in this field all around the world, and certainly here in Yeshiva University. My personal first exposure to the world of medical ethics was walking into Rabbi Tendler's medical ethics class in Yeshiva College. And the very notion that you could walk into a course at YU and be sitting at the feet of somebody who is dealing with the most complex issues before the United States Congress, before various experts all around the world, consulted everywhere, and who balanced such a sense of scholarship and understanding, such sensitivity, such insight, such reflection, and such leadership in terms of advancing these areas of life. We hope that all of the various reflections and insights we share over the course of today are le'ilui nishmaso, and we hope that we can do in some small measure, we could continue the incredible work that he started as his students, both the YU students as well as those who are leaders in this field today. I want to open by reflecting on a pasuk, on a verse that we encounter in the Torah that actually is expressed within the historical context that we find ourselves in at this point in the calendar year. Klal Yisrael has just left Mitzrayim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, tells the Jewish people, Kol hamachala asher samti b'Mitzrayim, all of the different illnesses and ails that you saw in Mitzrayim, you saw in Egypt, lo asim alecha, I will not bring to you, ki ani Hashem rofecha, because I am Hashem, I am God, your healer. And it's a fascinating expression on the part of God at this particular moment in the aftermath of the Exodus from Egypt. The Jewish people had just witnessed the 10 plagues and such extensive disruption in the world order in terms of people's sense of stability, people's sense of health. They had just witnessed the overwhelmingly compromising experience of Makas Bechoros, and no question that they had within themselves a certain instability relating to their own well-being and to their own health as they leave Mitzrayim, as they leave Egypt and go out into the desert, into the world of the unknown, ultimately with the direction to find their way to the land of Israel, to set up a society themselves as former slaves who would have to be responsible for their own health and well-being and that of their broader society. And God addresses this anxiety and he tells them, Ki ani Hashem rofecha. You're going to have a natural inclination to confront the challenges of health in the world. But never forget, Ki ani Hashem rofecha. Never forget that ultimately we confront those challenges not despite our value system, but within our value system. The notion that medical ethics represents our commitment that healing is not something that we just do in a categorical way, but that healing as well takes place. It comes from compassion. It comes from dedication and devotion. It comes from great investment of time and resources, but ultimately it takes place within the context of our values. And so we struggle all the time, especially when new treatments and new opportunities and new procedures and new entrepreneurial expressions of advancement in the areas of medical science come to fore. We struggle with ensuring that they are in fact aligned with our values and with everything we stand for. And where else but at Yeshiva University could young students not only connect to the great leaders of this world of innovation, not only have access to those who are bringing to the world so many different expressions of these types of advancements, but also have access to those like Dr. Reichman, like many others who are dealing with, and Rabbi Genak, Rabbi Ramon, so many others who are dealing with how we balance the world of medical advancement with the world of halacha and with our Torah values. Where else can students from the very outset of their medical career already be immersed in this challenge and in this struggle, but at Yeshiva University? And so it's of great pride to us that a conference such as this is produced each and every year, not by myself, not by Rabbi Winston, not by Dr. Reichman. We all play an advisory role, but this is really conceived, planned, executed, and delivered to the community entirely by the students of Yeshiva University. It's a great honor and privilege to be able to work together with them. We hope that everyone is inspired, enlightened, and feels a sense of connection to this greater effort of balance of values and the world through this incredible program this morning. It is of great privilege and pleasure to introduce the leaders of the Medical Ethics Society here at Yeshiva University.
Thank you, Rabbi Glasser, for your words of introduction and for all your help in putting this conference together. My name is Israel Dinesh, and I'm a co-president of the Yeshiva University Medical Ethics Society. I would like to take this moment to welcome everyone to the 15th Annual Yeshiva University Medical Ethics Conference. The conference is sponsored by the Community Synagogue of Monsey in memory of Rav Moshe Tendler Zatzal. The theme of this year's conference is biotechnology in Israel. Biotechnology is the application of natural sciences in the creation of medical, agricultural, and industrial products. In the past few decades, the global biotech industry has been steadily experiencing monumental growth and has recently gained renewed public interest following the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. Israel's many prestigious academic institutions and medical centers have paved the way for one of the most promising biotech hubs in the world. Through the innovative development of pharmaceuticals, medical technology, and diagnostics, the Jewish state has made a name for itself as a country that values contributions to medicine and the preservation of human life. The aim of our conference is to provide a deeper understanding of the Israeli biotech sector and to discuss the various bioethical and halachic issues that are relevant to this industry. I would like to introduce our conference chairman, Rabbi Dr. Edward Reichman. Rabbi Dr. Reichman is a professor of emergency medicine, education, and bioethics at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. He's an emergency medicine practitioner at the Montefiore Medical Center and is a renowned author and lecturer on Jewish medical ethics and history. Rabbi Dr. Reichman has been the mentor of the YU Medical Ethics Society since its inception. His expert advice and guidance has allowed us to further our mission of educating the students of Yeshiva University and the broader Jewish community on the most relevant medical ethics issues of our time. As in years past, Rabbi Dr. Reichman has been instrumental in arranging this conference. I would like to personally thank him for all the time and effort he has invested into making this a reality. I'm honored to present our conference chairman, Rabbi Dr. Reichman.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Yisrael. Rabbi Glasser's magnificent comments render anything I might say as superfluous. So I am simply going to thank all of you who've been involved over the many years in continuing this extraordinary society, the Medical Ethics Society, which so wonderfully illustrates the best of YU, the Torah Umada of YU, and thank YU for allowing me to be part of this organization since its inception. And as Rabbi Glasser said, I really play a small role. I mean, thank you, Yisrael, for your thanks and Daphna. But the truth is that Yisrael and Daphna and the amazing medical ethics team, and they are really an extraordinary team, have done an absolutely superb job in identifying a very current topic, which all of you are going to be fascinated in hearing about. A topic which illustrates the beauty of YU in its relationship with Torah Umada, and more importantly, with its relationship with Eretz Yisrael. Now that we are on the heels of Yom Ha'atzmaut, and Yisrael and Daphna have done a yeoman's job in identifying extraordinary people to speak with you and coordinating absolutely everything with the MES team. So I really thank you, Daphna and Yisrael, for allowing me to be a part of this, and YU and the entire medical ethics team. You are all in for a treat and enjoy what is surely to be an extraordinary conference. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi Dr. Reichman, for your words of introduction and for all that you have done to help us with this year's conference. My name is Daphna Levine, and I am a co-president of the YU Medical Ethics Society. The conference this year is divided into two overall sections. First, we will hear from a variety of researchers and executives about their experiences in and contributions to the biotechnology sector in Israel. Each of them plays a significant role in the development of modern technologies involving the life sciences, thereby helping advance Israel's excellent reputation in the realm of biotechnology. Following their presentations, we will hear about the bioethical and halachic perspectives on these matters from experts in ethics and Jewish law. I would like to express my hakarat hatov to all of our speakers for readily agreeing to take time out of their extremely busy schedules to enlighten us by sharing their perspectives. Additionally, I would like to thank everyone who helped bring this conference to fruition, specifically Rabbi Glasser, Rabbi Dov Winston, Rabbi Rob Shur, Rabbi Dr. Reichman, and our board members, especially those on the conference team. I would also like to mention the fact that this is the first Medical Ethics Society conference to be held since the passing of Rabbi Dr. Moshe Tendler, an expert in the discipline of bioethics who passed away late last year. He was involved with our society for many years, so I take this moment to remember him and to thank his shul in Monsey for sponsoring our event today. Before hearing from our first presenter, I would like to thank the president of Yeshiva University, Rabbi Dr. Avi Berman, for his ongoing support of our conference today. We are grateful for his encouragement of our society, and we are sorry that he could not make it in the end. And last, thank you to everyone attending for joining us today. It is because of you that our conference continues to be a success every year. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Daphna. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ilan Boshin, and I'm a board member of the YU Medical Ethics Society. Our first speaker this morning is Dr. Avi Schroeder. Dr. Schroeder earned his PhD from Ben Gurion University and then completed his postdoctoral studies at MIT. Dr. Schroeder is currently a professor of chemical and biomedical engineering at the Technion, where he heads the laboratory for targeted drug delivery and personalized medicine technologies. His lab employs innovative medical technologies in an effort to improve the lives of those suffering from neurodegenerative diseases and metastatic cancers, as well as to reduce food waste and advance crop protection in agricultural settings. Dr. Schroeder has extensive experience in nanotechnology and personalized medical technologies, holds multiple patents, and has received numerous international innovation awards. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Schroeder.
Hi guys, it's a great here from Israel, from the Technion. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well, Dr. Schroeder.
Okay, great. So I'm speaking to you, and actually I'm here together with the students from the Technion who are also listening to this talk. And just like giving like an overview, so maybe you can see here in the classroom, we're just setting up some of the technological aspects of the talk too. But I'll first start by speaking to your team in New York. So it's really great being here together. And from what I understood is that this course actually is at the interface of ethics, business, and technology. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So what I wanted to just two examples where we had how we came about technologies that we invented and bring them then into the clinic. And what I would say is that it happened a lot due to something that we were missing during the time of COVID is really more interaction between people. And so I'll share my slides with you. One second. And I actually wanted to start with what inspired me when I came to study chemical engineering. So I'm a chemical engineer by training. Can you see my? I think you can see them in a presentation mode, unfortunately. Let me just. Hello?
Yeah, you're good. We can see.
I hope this is better. In the Ben Gurion University. Can affect or impact cancer treatments. And the first thing he did is take nanoparticles, 100 nanometer liposomes. Those are the names of the nanoparticles. And just to get a sense of the size of these systems, that each particle here is about 1/1000th the width of a hair on our head. And what he did is he loaded these nanoparticles with a contrast agent inside. And then he injected them intravenously to the patient, so into the arm, and he then looked where they distributed in the body. And amazingly, these nanoparticles were distributing or targeting different tumors in different patients. So on the top left-hand corner of your underneath a patient is a patient with breast cancer and metastasis. Right-hand side, you can know cancer and metastasis in the exemplified and explained why it was so efficacious in treating cancer. Now, just to put us on score, so on the top of your screen, you can actually see Doxil, which is here, which is the first nanotechnology to be approved by the US FDA for treating cancer. And what it is a and ovarian cancer. So nanotechnology actually, or the first nanomedicine came out of Israel in order for treating drug. But since then, really this field has gone through a huge evolution, a lot of work that's being done all around the world for treating different diseases. But we do have this local joy that that many patients actually are enjoying this technology. And these technologies actually moved a lot forward with combinations of drugs and other types of medications, all the way to the COVID vaccine that I assume many of you actually have nanotechnology actually allows treating diseases that were incurable until today, such as liver diseases in which proteins misfold inside the liver. And these systems today are used widely day in, day out in the clinic. I think the best example of how important nanotechnology is really in treating came in the past couple of years when we saw that the COVID vaccines actually leveraged understanding we had in the field of nanotechnology and the ability of nanoparticles to penetrate to induce a therapeutic response. But the story really starts, I think, a couple years earlier. And what you can see in front of you for people who are less familiar with nanotechnology are actually nanoparticles. These are the nanoparticles of one of the COVID vaccines with the RNA inside of it. You can't see the RNA, but you can actually see very nicely the spheres of the nanoparticles into which the drugs are loaded, and the medicine actually elicits its response. So what we have is the therapeutic response. But if we look at how these things or how these technologies actually move from academia into the industry, which is, I think, one of the focuses of this course that you're doing both in the US and also here in Israel. Our students are very interested in entrepreneurship. I think it all starts from our teachers, our mentors, and I was very fortunate to have three amazing mentors for my PhD. On the right hand side, top right. And in addition to being a very good scientist, he's also a member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineering. As an Israeli, being a foreign member there is pretty unique. But he also works a lot with industry, and so he actually speaks both languages. And I'll touch on the ethics aspect in just one moment. The second, on the left-hand side, is Professor Chezi Berenholz. Chezi looks just like this. He just celebrated his 81st birthday, and he's still very active. And he invented Doxil, that first nanoparticle that had an anti-cancer agent. More than 300,000 ovarian and breast cancer patients annually. And from a business perspective, for those interested, this drug sells for almost $1 billion a year still till today. So it's still a blockbuster, even though it's a rather old chemotherapy. Underneath, on the bottom of the slide, I didn't know your politics in Yeshiva University, so I was very careful here. But on the left-hand side is the person that was my mentor, Bob Langer. And Bob is an amazing entrepreneur. He a chemical engineer. He's a member of also an entrepreneurial expert. And more specifically, Bob has more than 800 patents and more than 200 companies that he started. So I think being able to actually balance those two worlds is extremely important. And when the Harvard Business School saw this story of such a phenomenal entrepreneur, they asked the question, how can someone be so successful? And they wrote one of their great case studies, the Langer Lab. 17, and they actually looked at which concepts allow entrepreneurship inside a university, inside an academic environment, and they found 4 different aspects. So the first is like a huge idea, meaning that it needs to be something transformative. It has to be a seminal paper, meaning that it really moves us technologically forward. It has to have a blocking patent, of course, in order to protect it, and also a proof of concept, so that to make sure that the science is robust. I think behind all of these, and if we're talking about a course that talks a lot about ethics, one of the things I learned is that these projects, these technological projects, take many years to realize, especially when you invent a new medicine. It can be 10 or 15 years in the works. And for people, young people working in the field, I think the only real drive or real incentive we can have for staying for so long working on a single idea or single concept is belief. Ethics have many different aspects to them, but one of the main thing that can drive people to come in to work for 10 years or 15 years until a medicine is approved, sometimes even longer, is actually appreciating that this will make a big change to the world, and being willing to do that. So I'll give, in the interest of time, I'll give just 2 quick examples, if that's okay. Israel, how are we on time? I don't have a clock in front of me.
You have plenty of time.
Okay, great. So I'll just give 2. Of nanotechnology and treating a joint disease. Joints such as our knees, our hips, but mainly knees. So some of you may actually be, so I assume you can understand the Hebrew, but so for those who don't recognize it, so this is a healthy joint, and on the right-hand side actually is a joint that has osteoarthritis, degradation of the joint. Can you what we did is we invented nanoparticles actually that are injected directly into the joint of patients and reduce friction and wear for treating osteoarthritis. And when you develop a new medicine in the lab, of course, you need to go for a big problem. So what we did is we took a very simple concept, asking ourselves, can nanotechnology not be used only as a carrier for medicines, as I showed you in the first slide with the cancer patients? Could we apply it in a totally different area for treating patients that have degradation of their cartilage? And the nanoparticles here are actually the medicine itself. Instead of being a nanoparticle that carries a medicine inside of it, the nanoparticle here is actually the medicine itself. It lubricates the surface of the cartilage. And thank God, we were able to actually improve the quality of life of patients. So we followed patients for over a period of more than initially 30 days, then for 90 days. And we saw that compared to the control groups, which were treated with the best existing, I think after really many years of work, getting these results back and seeing that you changed people's lives made a huge impact on me, and actually made me decide, to stay in this field of therapeutics, even though it's very it's very long and tiresome, I would say. More than that, when we looked at these patients, we saw that not only were they able to climb up and down stairs, get in and out of a chair, improve their daily activity, they were also, these patients actually were consuming less pain. And we were pretty fortunate. We sold this company in a great partnership deal between us and Sun Pharma, which is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And we actually just completed a large clinical trial in the US, a second one in the US, in Denmark, and in Singapore, in order to hopefully approve this drug. So I think sometimes we were working on and sometimes, questions come up. Could we take such a technology and further improve it, make it even better, make it perfect? And here, the idea behind it would have been, instead of just injecting an empty nanoparticle, which can reduce the friction and wear inside a joint, could we actually also add a medicine that would further improve the joint? And luckily, we didn't do it at the time, because the regulatory bodies, even the concept of injecting particles into a joint was a new concept at the time, and adding another medicine would have probably stopped our work at all. And I'll just say, working in this field, the number of ethical questions that come up are enormous, and they just grow in time. And I think really keeping your focus on what's right is very important. Many times patients come, ask, can you get me some of that medicine? And we have to work always through the systems in order to make sure that all patients get the same treatment exactly, and not one gets something just based on personal knowledge or something like that. So that's one concept. And the second really is, I think, the feeling rewarded when you actually see that a technology that we were able to invent helps people. Here, actually, a story that started between us in Israel and a group in the University of Utah, Dr. Joshua Schiffman. He's a pediatric oncologist in the University of Utah, and he actually grew up on the East Coast, and then don't get cancer. Pretty amazing. If you think of it, an animal that's 100 times greater in size than we are and lives about 70 or 80 years, how can such animals be protected from cancer? Something that we many times may not be able to design ourselves. And when we look in nature, actually, have cancer at all, or almost very, very rarely. If they have 100 times more body weight, they also have about 100 times more cells. So statistically, they should be dropping down from cancer right and left. And they don't. And that means they have a protective mechanism. This is Dr. Joshua Schiffman on the right-hand side, myself on the left-hand side. But an elephant that's 60 years old, the female elephant that's held in captivity. And because she's held in captivity, actually, they take a blood sample from one of her veins once a week. And we were able to ask for one of these blood samples and study what differs between elephants and humans in cancer mechanism. And what we found is actually that there's one gene that differs greatly between humans and elephants, and this can be leveraged for developing a totally new cancer treatment approach. So it resides around a gene called P53, and our students here are looking, and they actually they recognize this gene. They've learned about it. P53 is the guardian of the genome, and that's what it's called. As we age, actually, the quality of p53 in our cells deteriorates. And maybe to emphasize how important this gene is for protecting us from cancer are two facts. So one is that 50% of cancer cells, or 50% of the cancer types we have among humans, lack p53, meaning that the cancer cell was able to kick out p53 or deactivate it. The second is that if we mention that healthy adults have 2 copies of p53, there are children that are born with a syndrome called Leaf-Armstrong, that one extra copy is important for protecting our cells. When we look at elephants, if we have 2 copies of p53, elephants actually have 40 copies of p53 in each one of their cells. The first 2 copies are identical between the humans and the elephants, and the other 38, each one here is a pair. The other 38 are small alterations between the humans and the elephants. It into a human and protecting ourselves from getting cancer. And so we did what we know how to do. We took a nanoparticle. On the left-hand side is a drawing of a nanoparticle. Its size is, again, about 1/1000th the width of a hair on our head. And we loaded it with a gene of p53. And then we looked at what it does to cancer cells. And we saw on the left-hand side are cancer cells, osteosarcoma. This is a bone cancer. On the right-hand side is the same cells after adding the p53 gene to them. These cells become round and actually die away. The same happens also when we do the same to prostate cancer, and also when we go on, we tested this also in pancreatic cancer. If you look on the right-hand side, explodes after adding the p53. So I'll just end by saying that when we, I think our motivation is the patients, and when we come to develop new technologies, our motivation is patients and not anything else, because those would be, I think, far from us. I just want to say hi from and I think the second thing is really partnerships between schools in the United States and schools in Israel, Technion being one of them. I think can really, I think the entrepreneurship on both sides of the ocean, the innovation really requires people working together. So thank you so much for giving us the stand today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schroeder, for your fascinating presentation. My name is Chaim Kaslow, and I'm also a board member of the YU Medical Ethics Society. Our next speaker is Dr. Jonathan Rosenberg. I would love to speak about all of the amazing things Dr. Rosenblum has accomplished and achieved over the years, but my superiors instructed me to keep the introduction brief. Dr. Rosenblum is a podiatric surgeon and scientist who studied at the New York College of Podiatric Medicine, went on to found and become the director of the Diabetic Foot Service and Shaare Zedek Medical Center in Jerusalem, and opened the Israel Amputation Prevention Center, where he practices his subspecialty, diabetic limb salvage. In 2019, Dr. Rosenblum co-founded Rhythm Life Sciences, a medical technology company focused on the development of CPR devices, and currently serves as CEO. Thank you very much, Dr. Rosenblum, for everything you have done and continue to do. Without further ado, Dr. Rosenblum.
Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen here. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Most of it is true. I'm certainly not as important or good as it sounds, but I do appreciate it. I'm honored to be able to present my company that I'm with now, called Rhythm Life Sciences. Just to get a little introduction, we are a technology company. We'll get to how we were formed and why we were formed after, but the technology company that is addressing resuscitative medicine and problems and things that are lacking in emergency medicine. The company was founded in 2019. My co-founder, Yehuda Roseman, was taking a EMT course. And I'd like to say that the company is really mission-based. He was taking an EMT course because one of his business partners had lost a child because there was no defibrillator around. And in the first class of the EMT course, they were taking a CPR class. And the instructor said to them that CPR is all well and good, but without a defibrillator nearby, the chances are close to zero of a positive resuscitation, of saving the life. They started searching for the defibrillator in the shul hall. There was a sign that there was a defibrillator. The defibrillator ended up being locked up in the rabbi's office in a safe. He felt that this was a little bit ridiculous in this day and age where everybody's carrying a very powerful computer in their pocket, i.e. their cell phone. And he came to me because I've been involved in different medical devices for about 20 years and said he'd like to build a cell phone sized defibrillator. I immediately left him off because that's, in my opinion, was relatively impossible. But after thinking about it, we decided that why not? If we take certain things out of the traditional defibrillators and move them into the cell phone, we would be able to shrink the size down. Our first product, which came about, the idea for it came about later. We launched in November 2021. I'll actually just show you, this is it. It's a little CPR puck. We'll discuss it a little more further on. And our second product, which is our defibrillator, which is just this size, as you can see, in a little waterproof box, we're expecting to launch at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Okay, so why are we looking to get into rhythm? And like I told you the story, Jolts is a very personal and mission-oriented company. The J and the Z that we put in Jolts, which is the name of our defibrillator, are actually the initials of the young person who was Nifter and was the cause of all of this getting started. If we talk about, the previous lecturer whose products I do know and have very good things to say about them, but he talked about, you always want to do something good and you want to do something important and good for mankind. And of course, kol hamatzil nefesh achat. If you can save one life, it's as if you're saving a world. And that's why when we're addressing resuscitative medicine, we're literally talking about life-saving. Some of the statistics that are just very important to know about, there are over 600,000 sudden cardiac arrests that occur in the US every year outside of the hospital. There are out-of-hospital cardiac arrests. For every minute of delay between the cardiac arrest and when the first defibrillation is given, there's a 10% increase in mortality. That means that at 1 minute after a cardiac arrest, if you get a defibrillator there, there'll be a 90% chance of saving, as opposed to if you wait 5 minutes, there's only a 50% chance of saving. So the company mission is to make the defibrillator ubiquitous. And we've teamed up with the American Heart Association. We're a member of their Center for Health Technology and Innovation. And they've identified 3 major things that are keeping people from owning a personal defibrillator. The first is cost. The second is a fear factor. And the third is the size. Even in the general public, people are ashamed to show that they're weak or that they're sick. People are ashamed of, if we put it in Jewish terms a little bit, of an ayin hara, and they're afraid to keep it out. So when we were designing the product, and when I talk about in some of my other classes, talking to people who are going into biomedical and biotech, you have to find the problem and address it. So we took the three problems that are preventing defibrillator becoming ubiquitous, and we addressed each. The first thing we did is we shrunk down the size, and I'll show you pictures a little later of what ours looks like as compared to the ones you've seen, I'm sure, on campus, and anyone who volunteers in Hatzalah or elsewhere, the life packs that are the huge bricks. So we've addressed the size, we've addressed the cost. We've set a price limit for what we're willing to come out to the market with. that's between a half and a third of the other defibrillators on the market. And as far as a fear factor, we've made the defibrillator absolutely idiot-proof, so that even I can use it. And it's got coaching built in, both audio and video, which is unique to that. Right? We also, on the way, we developed, and that's why I said the first product, this rescuer, was launched first. But on the way to developing the defibrillator, we realized that we need to also try and get the other parts of basic life support better. There were some scary statistics that came out both in the US and in Europe, that even people who took a CPR class, up to 90% responded that even though they knew this stuff, if they passed someone on the street who required CPR, they wouldn't do it. We did a little bit of a marketing study, and it showed that people who own, not even if they carry it on their person, but people who own a device that would be related to CPR, that the numbers would go down to about 50% would then be willing. And if they're carrying something on their person, in their backpack or in their pocket or wherever it is, they would, up to 90% would then do CPR if they came across someone. So we decided to design something to help increase CPR performance and to make it much easier and a lot more intuitive. And we'll discuss that also. How do we get to a product, right? So the first thing is obviously there's an idea. And if we're thinking about this as new entrepreneurs or new people who are entering the medical device, you should dream. And I honestly believe this. Anything you think of can be done. There really are no steps that can't be overcome. And if not now, then you should be able to plan out what's going to be, because technology is increasing at such a rapid pace that while today you might not be able to do it, tomorrow the next step should be there. And then obviously identify a problem or a need or something missing. In our case, we realized that, the ability to save lives by performing proper CPR and getting defibrillation there in a much quicker time was missing. And we attacked all the things that were getting there. And we are trying, the goal is obviously not just to have public access defibrillation, but also to have at-home defibrillation. And the most important thing that I say to people who I coach when they're developing their companies or they're asking me about what to do is one step at a time. There's no way to run to the end. I've been involved in medical devices now for over 20 years. I started off doing medical research on wound care. It expanded into other things. I then developed medical protocols. I then started to delve into a little bit on the business side, building business protocols and business development. But the most important thing is to go one step at a time. So if I were to tell you the steps of how we did it, basically it works like this. Over the last 20 years, I've been involved in 7 or 8 startups. 1 or 2 of them have been successful, but the majority of them were not. And the statistics are, that's about right. 3/4 are unfortunately not successful, but you can learn a lot more from things that are going difficult than from things that go easy. So I took the lessons of many of the things that I learned from the successful cases, and even more of the lessons that I learned from the less successful cases. And when I was asked to stay on as CEO and not just to be the consultant, I told the rest of the board that the only way I'll accept that is if we actually do this in a stepwise manner. So our stepwise manner started like this. We evaluated the regulatory landscape. We looked at what we were going to need for the FDA, what we were going to need for the CE and other countries, and to decide if this was something that would be feasible. While at the same time, we were looking at the marketplace to see if this was something that could be commercially feasible. After both of those were found to be acceptable and that we could move on, we began to put the team in place. The first piece that I put in place, since I have no knowledge of engineering, I'm a wonderful podiatrist. I will pat myself on the back and take away a little bit of the anava. I apologize. But I definitely do not know anything about electricity or electrical engineering or mechanical engineering for that matter. So the first thing that we did was find an electrical engineer, and we were lucky enough to find someone who had 15 years of experience in defibrillation from one of the other large companies, and we added him to the team. From there, we added our R&D house, and from there it expanded horizontally and laterally. We were able to add an operations officer and our sales and marketing team, and our board grew where we took, and this was one of the most important things that we got. The person who's now chairman of the board, we made it a list of slots of markets that we were looking to penetrate, and we took advice by adding one person to the board from each of those. So we took someone from emergency medicine and out of hospital medical care. We took someone from the military, and we took someone from ambulance corps. We have people from United Hatzalah, and we were able to grow from there. This is a picture of our defibrillator. It's currently undergoing testing for the FDA. The device is about the size of a paperback book. I can show you again from this model of it that it fits in the palm of my hand. It weighs less than 2 pounds. It's waterproof, it floats. So it will be the only defibrillator that will be marine graded. We over-engineered it. You can see the ruggedness of it. It is built up to military spec. We put the features inside where it's just basically easy. You open it up, it automatically turns on, and will begin to give you voice prompts as to what to do. The electrodes come already plugged in so that you can have one step less to do that. In addition to which, I started off by telling you that Rhythm is a technology company, and we, using our technology to address the problem, we combine this with a cell phone app. The cell phone app right now has the ability, if you pair it, when you open the defibrillator, it will activate your cell phone app automatically and call 911 or Hatzalah or whatever number you've programmed in automatically. It will send them your GPS so that they know where to come. And depending on the emergency medical system, it will also be able to send them the telemetry, the EKG tracings, so that they can do that. One of the ways that we were able to minimize the size is we took the screen out and we used the cell phone screen. Most people who were using a defibrillator, and this was how we addressed some of the fear factor. Seeing an EKG, or God forbid, seeing a flat line or VFib, the funny squiggly lines that will scare people, will induce fear in someone who's trying to do defibrillation. And so by taking it off, there's no screen here, so there's nothing to get in the way of that. So a calm, gentle voice will be telling you to, hit the orange shock button. For those who feel that they can and need to see the EKG waves, they'll be able to see it on their cell phone. They'll also be able to get coaching and video coaching on the cell phone. This is our rescuer. When we were addressing, like I said at the beginning, when you have an idea to try and address something that's missing or something that's there, we started to evaluate all the things that make it difficult to do CPR or why people wouldn't. And we wanted to make sure that we got better compressions. We wanted to make sure that we got better compressions and that we had fewer CPR complications. Okay, so again, this is our device. As I hold it close, you can see X marks the spot. So even someone who hasn't learned CPR can know where to put it exactly. The back over here has a non-slip surface. So once it's on, it's not going anywhere. You can see in the picture here on the right, the hands are forced into a proper position. This is very important. There are 3 different parts to getting good compressions. Number 1 is the rate. Number two is where the hands are placed. And number two is how the depth. So we figured out with the geometry that if you get the rate correctly, so this has 2 metronomes built into it. So the rate will be good. If you're doing compressions just to the beat and you have your arms in the right position, then you'll get the proper depth. And that'll allow, when you do the proper depth, when you go down, blood is being pushed out of the heart. And when you release, blood is being allowed into the heart. So by doing it like that, you can get it like that. And on the picture on the left, you can actually see that we have 2 fingers, a little hole for 2 fingers, which is how infant CPR, God forbid, is supposed to be done. But again, it's the same position. Now, some of the other things that are reasons people don't do CPR is a lot of broken ribs and substernal fractures. And the phrase that we've coined for this is less crunch when you punch. The way that this is shaped and the way that it sits on the sternum, it disperses the force across the sternum and across the ribs in a better manner, which causes fewer fractures both in the ribs and both as the ribs attached to the sternum. Another problem that we addressed, the American Heart Association published a paper about 20 years ago and then republished it again in a new study this past year, that when a sudden cardiac arrest happened in the field, if it happened to a woman, CPR was started on them 30% slower than it was done on men. And this is not just a Jewish thing, but SNEAS really did play a big role in this. Actually, about 2 months ago, there was a case in, I believe it was South Dakota, where 2 EMTs started CPR on a woman in public, and they had left her top undressed, and she sued them and sued successfully for embarrassing her by leaving her undressed in public. So to address this need of the AHA, we actually added this privacy sheet in, so that as soon as you pop off the back and you activate the metronome, the privacy sheet can be quickly put over, so there's no problem and no delay in getting CPR started. Again, like we said, there's proper placement, which causes all of the advantages to come together because you're getting proper placement and proper rate. Okay, before we just move on to what I think are some keys to a successful business and maybe some ethics involved, I should say that some of the technological advantages that we're doing with the defibrillator in particular is we just came back last week from the FDIC, which is the fire department instructional course in Indianapolis, which is combined also with an EMT course where there were over 5,000 people. One of the things that we've done is we've attached our device to a drone. There's a company out in California that did a pilot study in one city in California, one town in California, where EMS was very far away. They weren't able to get there. And what they do is they nest drones in trees and in light posts around the county. And when there's an EMS call or a fire call, they activate the drones. So currently what they're doing is that they only activate the drones to come in and provide some aerial support to help guide the ambulance or the fire truck to the scene of the incident. But we've now added our defibrillators to that, where they're going to be able to bring defibrillators, and because ours are spec'd out to military spec, they'll be able to drop them in. We're also doing that now across Canada. There's a company that does that there, and we've joined with them to do a pilot study of getting drones out there quickly. So what I feel are keys to getting a good biotech company up running is, number one, you got to enjoy what you're doing. And it really is not just a cliche. If you hate what you're doing, you're going to hate it and you're not going to want to make it successful, and it won't be successful. Number two is to surround yourself with the best people. We had a policy when we started the company from day one, is that we only wanted to hire people or to bring in even investors who are people that we want to deal with. People who are going to annoy you, people who are going to upset you, are going to make it very difficult for you to work and to be successful, and you're just not going to enjoy it. Next one, and I can't stress this enough, is to follow a step-by-step outline. ABCs are really ABCs. You can't skip a step. You can't run 10 things in parallel. You have to make sure that you know where you're going, and a business plan is there for a reason. It's meant to be followed. It's not, rules are not meant to be broken. They're not even in this case meant to be bent. You really should try and stick to it. And if you get from step to step, you'll get to the end and you'll be successful. You should have a clear plan and an outlook. And those are two different things. A plan is an active thing, and an outlook is a theoretical thing. You have to know where you want to be. You have to know what you want to do. You have to have your goals set and clear, and then you have to be able to implement. Okay? And you need to get that implementation in place and follow along and to start it. Okay? Life is going to be rough, and there are going to be complications. We started this company just before COVID, and I have to say that for the most part, until recently, we've been very lucky that COVID did not affect us. We are now, unfortunately, starting to feel the effects of it with the supply chain issues and with people being out. Our rescuer device, for instance, is made near Shenzhen, which was closed for about a month or so ago. So we're dealing with that. You should always try and do something meaningful. That shouldn't be, it should be ethically where we all start, but you should always have, at the end of the day, you should really always try and say, have I done something good? And never give up. Even when things are tough and you're having a bad day, or the FDA came back with a list of questions that you can't believe they did, or they don't understand something, push through. There is a way through it. There is a way at it. You should be able to do it. And good luck to all of you. Thank you to Israel for inviting me to do that. Thank you to Stephanie for recommending me to do this. And good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosenblum, for your informative presentation. My name is Esther Miller, and I'm a board member of the Medical Ethics Society. And I am pleased to have the honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Hermann Weiss. Dr. Weiss received his MD at the Ohio State University College of Medicine, followed by a residency in OB at Einstein College of Medicine. He also received his MBA from the George Washington University School of Business. Dr. Weiss has founded and held leadership positions at companies such as Provation Life, Juniper Pharmaceuticals, Teva, and Todos Medical. In addition, Dr. Weiss co-founded the Master's Program of Business and Management of Biotechnology at the Yeshiva University Katz School of Science. Dr. Weiss currently serves as the CEO of Libra Sciences. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Weiss. I'm privileged to present Dr. Weiss.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into putting this conference together. I'm very pleased that it's Zoom, because that allows a broader reach, and it allows a broader ability to hear more of fascinating presentations, and I can work it into my very, very busy schedule. So kudos to the organizers. This conference is a conference that I've been following for years. I think, I don't know what year you're up to, but it seems like it's been going on for a long time, and every year it just gets more interesting. And so when they were asking me to present, I was honored, embarrassed. I've been a longtime fan, always eager to listen to the podcast if I can't show up in person. When they come out on YU, usually they come out on YU Torah as they become available. They're always timely topics. They're always very interesting, and they're always very, very relevant, which begs the question, what am I doing here? We got a good laugh looking at the pictures of these really esteemed presenters, and then myself as batting cleanup, so to speak, which is certainly not the case. As usual, it is a very impressive lineup, and so perhaps a few moments of my history to understand where I'm coming from. because my talk and my company is neither, not to say that it's not ethical. My talk is not ethical and it's not legal minded, but fortunately, Israel told me that doesn't matter. They just want to hear about biotech in Israel. And I can go on and on about the robust biotech culture here in Israel, because it's really mind-blowing what's going on. I could listen to Avi Schroeder present for hours, and every time I do listen to him, I invariably think of another potential startup. I think of another idea, another solution, another problem, all these ideas that percolate in his mind and others' minds, and they always rise to the top. And how are we going to study that? How are we going to test that? How are we going to bring that to patients? So I just want to echo his closing thoughts. We and I actually am part of the YU faculty. I just want to impress upon the students that are listening or that may listen to this, any university settings, especially ours, and as we're transitioning to build our Israel branch here, in terms of the academics, we're eager to entertain students and the students' ideas, anything that percolates and aligns with our technologies and our current approaches, and we want to collaborate. And I also want to echo what Dr. Rosenblum has said. If you can dream it, just dream it. If you can think of it, just think of it. It can be done. And approach a faculty and don't take no for an answer. And so it's very important, sitting here in Israel, how I got here and how I came to the position that I'm in. I couldn't have scripted this at all. I went to, like I mentioned, I went to Ohio State Medical School, I went to Einstein residency for OBGYN, bread and butter OBGYN residency, did an MBA, and then in 2008 we moved to Israel for various reasons, and I started knocking on doors. I got introduced to the biotech flora here, the robust microbiome, I should say, in this country for biotechnology. And I knock on a door, and they said, well, we have an OBGYN concept that we're milling about. So I helped co-found that company, and I was a chief medical officer for some time, for a couple of years. And then I moved over to Teva, where I learned pharmaceutical development. Then I worked in a company in Boston for a year and a half, came back and was head of a company in the diagnostic space. But you're always expanding, you're always seeing, you're always being, engulfed with additional ideas and different concepts. And you always have an eager ear in any one of the, I've been in touch with people at Weitzman, I've been in touch with Avi in Technion and Hebrew U, and you always have other, opportunities where people are just eager to learn, eager to help, eager to push the envelope as it goes. So I, have been here, like I said, since 2008 with my wife and family, and many different ideas percolate. And I met somebody back in Boston when I was there in 2015. They approached me to head this company, which I'm about to present to you, in a specific area that has a robust infrastructure here in Israel, and so. And that's what I've been working at, developing and bringing on the pharmaceutical grade. And what Jonathan was just speaking about is really on the medical device pathway is one pathway, and the pharmaceutical pathway is very clear and very distinct. And then, so again, I was talking to Israel about putting together the lineup and trying to figure out who could contribute and who would be a good contributor. And then recently I saw the conference announcement, and I saw who the sponsors are and in whose name this conference was being given over. And, I looked around and I saw that Rev. Ramon and Rev. Berman and Rev. Ganack and the other esteemed presenters were on the lineup. But I just wanted to share a quick minute about why I felt, emotionally gravitated towards this presentation. So this coming Erev Shavuos is actually the 22nd year anniversary of my son Noach's bris, which I performed as the Moel, having successfully learned from other esteemed presenters in the past, like Zalman Levine was my teacher. And I performed the bris with Rev. Tendler watching over my shoulder in his watchful eye in Community Synagogue in Muncie, where my in-laws and I were longtime congregants. And as we convened in the social hall downstairs for the bagels and lox. And I remember, I can clearly recall the message that Rav Tendler gave over that morning. He spoke of seeing me and standing next to me as I performed the bris as a clear demonstration of Torah Mata. He said that this was, being able to combine your secular and your Torah education together to really, blossom. And he watched me grow as a young adult, as to a young married, to bringing a family and a successful doctor, and hopefully staying in the Torah ways. And this successful combination of this Torah knowledge and secular knowledge is really creating this new singular entity, the Torah Mata, which was he was so proud and he was so successful at. And so I've always been grateful to Rav Tendler for his continuous guidance over the years and decades, his words of encouragement, as well as the support and strength that my family has always received from, and still does receive from Community Synagogue of Muncie. So it was really a culmination of a lot of things. When I saw that they were supporting this worthwhile conference, I was more than happy to do what I can to make it a success. So again, I know that was a long-winded introduction, but Israel texted me earlier that I can have more time. But now to get on to the presentation, what actually brings me here and what was actually gets me up early in the morning and keeps me up late at night is bringing these companies along, and as John so successfully and eruditely, that's even a word, described. If you have a template and you have milestones and you have to hit each milestone, you can't skip any, and you have to hit one after the other, and it's even more pronounced in the pharmaceutical world of development, where you have to hit your preclinicals, your safeties, your animal models, your phase 1s, your phase 2s, your phase 3s, and then always keeping your eye on the goal line. That takes a lot of money to develop, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of siyata d'shmaya and a lot of luck. So let me share my screen, and I will get on with my presentation. 1 second. Okay. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, we see it.
Thank you. All right, so 1 second. All right, so let me just get into the presentation mode. All right, so the microbiome. Basically, we have a platform that we're pushing forward, and we are utilizing the patient's microbiome, which I'll talk about momentarily. And we are identifying potential targets, of which we've already presented 3 for development. And 1 second. And we have various forms of potential targets available. So we have one platform where we're developing a macromolecule that is actually leaching out the toxic metabolites that the microbiome produces, that has potential downstream effects that causes disease in the host. We leach them out via the macromolecules. These macromolecules, in a nutshell, are exquisitely safe because they don't get absorbed. They don't cause toxic damage. The metabolites are leached out and excreted out in the normal fashion. And in fact, after a prolonged treatment, the microbiome again shifts from the gut dysbiosis to a normal microbiome. And so we also have a robust supplement market, which we're developing for approval later on down the road, more of a non-traditional alternative approach to metabolic diseases, including women's health and general health. So that's more on a secondary line, but right now I'll talk more about our first to market. We're a small team. We're building our team, and it's right now it's myself and my financial CFO. Gary just joined the team, and we're still looking for others to build on with additional expertise across the industry. One of the things that I did when I started getting involved in this company was I made a very simple Google alert with microbiome, and I started putting microbiome disease and microbiome, and there is a an unbelievable amount of data and research that's that's been into the public, into the scientific lexicon, and it's widely accepted that the next frontier in targeting multiple diseases, anywhere from Alzheimer's and dementia to cancers and to immune system disorders, is looking at the microbiome as a mechanism to alter disease pathways. The challenge is that it's a long process, because when you have a gut dysbiosis, when the gut isn't working properly, it forms these toxic metabolites. Toxic metabolites then get absorbed in certain levels because of that leaky gut, so to speak, and I'll describe that later. And then that will actually cause downstream effects. And it's not like a rapidly evolving where you can, one day be fine, the next day have an infection, or vice versa. You're not getting an infection. You may be causing some downstream inflammatory effects. We found that that a gut dysbiosis, which is this imbalance of the gut microbiome, is associated with even polycystic ovary disease, which is my pet project. It's associated with Alzheimer's, and the problem is that these diseases are so long to develop. You're not necessarily affecting the immediate. If you can have a surrogate end marker, then you can have more of a proof when you're doing and designing your clinical trials. So that's why it's a little bit hard to positively affect the downstream markers of disease. If we were to have some surrogate markers, we can get these drugs approved faster. But again, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game with the FDA. They don't want to approve drugs that they don't know, if there's downstream effects. The beauty of our approach, and I'll describe this more in a few minutes, is that we actually don't have any absorption of our molecule, because it's a macromolecule, and we actually are leaching out these toxic metabolites, and we don't cause any damage locally or systemically. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so just to quickly give you our investor deck, so to speak. So I'd rather talk more about the science than where we're at, but we've progressed 3 projects through 2 in discovery, 1 in obesity, which we're actually bringing that, and I'll show you some data we have in animals. Just for those of you who don't know about pharmaceutical development, you have to prove safety and efficacy to a certain degree with animal models, and then you open an IND. To a certain degree, you have to do some pharmacodynamic studies, pharmacokinetic studies that are generally accepted. Once you've gotten those boxes checked, you present to the FDA. They approve you to open an investigational new drug, an IND. Once you get the IND approved, then you can go into the clinics, which is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And then, each one of those is, obviously the price keeps going up and up and up. And as you hit your milestones, then the value of your company continues to rise, and you could raise more money to get to the next milestone. That's biotech finance 101, and you could take my course in YU, which is the business of biotech. So another one of my pet projects when I have free time. Another project, CLS2, is in the cardiovascular space, and CLS3 is in the kidney disease space. Okay, and then as I mentioned, our supplement program is actually approved for sale in Europe, and it's doing very well there for a non-hormonal therapy for women undergoing menopause. And we're registering it and ready for sale in 2023 in the US. Again, it's a plant-based mechanistic approach that is non-hormonal, and stay tuned for more information on that. Quick 2 minutes on the microbiome. We are covered in bacteria. I know it's hard to say this now with regards to what we went through in the last 2 years, but we have bacteria all over us. I'd be interested to see if all these hand washing actually cause damage down the road. Again, downstream effects because of these protective bacteria that we are now taking off our body, but we're protected in our mucosal layers, the gut, the vagina, the mouth, all is covered in protective, healthy bacteria that maintains a healthy, basement membrane, so to speak, with your mucosal layer. Where does this bacteria come from? We get it via when we're born. You have genetic predispositions to certain types of bacteria. Hygiene. We talk about why the level of peanut allergy is so low in Israel is because we let our kids play in dirt all the time, and so they are exposed to the allergen at a younger age. They're exposed to bacteria at a younger age. So they have this robust, healthy microbiome. Diet is a huge player in the microbiome, as well as antibiotic use or other drug use that can alter the microbiome. And so an altered microbiome actually leads to different diseases down the road. And so we have, as you progress through life, we have a different set of as we say, an immature to a more mature microbiome, or healthier, or sometimes the gut dysbiosis where it's unhealthy. Here's a slight description of the microbiome. As you go from the top of your gut down to the bottom, you increase exponential growth of the numbers of microbiome. And that's why, despite all this talk about altering the microbiome, it's exquisitely difficult to do so, because if you want to take something orally, to get it to the gut is a long ride, and usually the medications, or usually the bacteria that you're ingesting become deregulated, or called destroyed, or broken down by the gastric enzymes or other enzymes that are in the stomach and the acid environment. So it's hard to get if you ingest bacteria or whatnot that you want to alter. You can say, if I have an unhealthy bacteria in my colon, why don't I just ingest healthier bacteria? And sure enough, it's very hard to ingest healthy bacteria to get it to your gut. So we talk about probiotics, prebiotics, symbiotics. If you may be aware, there's companies that have put out fecal microbiome transplant called FMT, where patients who suffer from C. difficile, which is an overgrowth of a toxic bacteria that live in your gut, that if you introduce the healthy bacteria that can keep the toxic bacteria in check. Some are using rectal suppositories as introduction that bypasses the upper GI. Some are using, and those are all have been approved, and not approved. Those all are in IND, and those are all in the clinics, but they haven't been approved for sale as of yet. But it's a massive market. So like I mentioned earlier, this dysbiosis is where you have the normal gut homeostasis is where the bacteria in your gut is producing this mucous membrane, and you have this functional membrane which is actually preventing disease from entering and creating a good barrier. When that breaks down with abnormal bacteria, you actually have this defect, and it can actually cause disease. So our approach is not to create a new bacteria, not to ingest bacteria, but to alter the toxic metabolites that are actually being ingested into the body, the pro-inflammatory, the pro-degenerative, the pro-neoplastic. Every one of these, we've actually identified 70 different potential targets that are produced in the gut that are metabolites. The small chain fatty acids that are the bad players, the butyrate, the acetate, the list goes on. And these actually are oversubscribed in patients. They're overproduced in patients with the unhealthy microbiome, and they actually have evidence of disease. So what we've developed is a macromolecule that does not get absorbed, that has sticky ends, that's able to leach out the toxic metabolites. And so really, there are significant limitations, as I mentioned, to the current treatments. We're going after this low-hanging fruit. We've seen a lot of, not necessarily our competitors, but a lot of our colleagues in similar approaches, not to say that they're using this macromolecule, but they're trying to alter the microbiome with different methods. So what we've done is that we've identified these toxic metabolites. We created a macromolecule. We've tested it in the lab, and I'll show you some data that we've tested in animals in a moment. As you see that there's a whole host of potential diseases that we've identified, and now based on our macromolecule process that we have patented, we're able to create this leaching out and successfully. I mean, the idea again is that you're not going to be able to prove your effect on Alzheimer's, but you may be able to prove your effect on some of the surrogate markers. The market is incredible in terms of our first go-to-market product is in the obesity space. There has been some good data on some recent entries into the injectable market for obesity. Some of the type 2 diabetes drugs are crossing the border into the obesity space and have some really good data. But again, there are some side effects to everything, and the piece of the pie is tremendous as we see what obesity is doing, not only to the U.S. but ex-U.S. as well. It's a rampant plague, although we can't really say that word anymore. So what we did is we identified a chemical, call that chemical A right now, for privacy purposes. There are studies that have shown that we didn't do, but if others have substantiated that this chemical is higher in obese patients, and where we saw was that they had a gut dysbiosis. They had elevated levels of various microbiome. We introduced our macromolecule into a few groups into 3 groups. Of high-fat diet mice. This is our animal model I spoke about earlier. We gave them a high-fat diet for the first 40 days, and then we gave them, we continued one group on a high-fat diet. We continued one group on a high-fat diet and the macromolecule without the sticky ends. And then the third group was the macromolecule with the sticky ends, and within 2 weeks, they formed a good separation, and there was a significant loss of weight on the treated group. Within 2 weeks, they showed a greater than 10% weight loss of the group that had that macromolecule attached with the sticky ends. And we also looked to see if there was any systemic side effects. There was no liver damage. There was no renal damage. We looked at the mucosal and inflammatory markers, and there was no change in the inflammatory markers as well. We then, interesting enough, because we were not approaching this from altering the microbiome, we wanted to see what was happening to these patients, or to these animals after with their microbiome. And indeed, we showed that we were able to alter the microbiome, our desired effect, just by removing those toxic metabolites. So we were able to shift their microbiome from a toxic microbiome to a more healthier microbiome, which was really, really exciting news for us. And so I want to talk about some of this. Our metabolite B is in the other space, and so in the cardiovascular and cholesterol. And so we have other products in our pipeline. And as I mentioned earlier, we have 70 potential targets. I didn't want to spend too much time. Oh my gosh, can you only see my title screen the whole time? Okay, so that was, I'm just trying to see if I don't know if anyone had any questions for me, but it just basically, in conclusion, we're taking a we're taking a different approach to altering the microbiome by taking out the toxic metabolites. And what the body does in that sense is that it actually shifts the microbiome back to a healthier, and then thereby effectively, hopefully, positively affecting the ultimately the microbiome in a positive way. So I think I got my 30 minutes or my 25 minutes in, a little bit overtime. Happy to take any questions if there are any. I think Anne. Mm-hmm. Did I lose everybody?
No, we hear you. I guess we
Okay.
could just move on to the next one. She did chat us your questions.
Yeah, and if you have a question for me, just send me you can chat to me.
Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you, Dr. Weiss. My name is Dvor Chasen, and I'm a board member of the YU Medical Ethics Society. Dr. Gil Segal, our next speaker, has many roles in medicine and law. He received a medical and law degree from Tel Aviv University, as well as a PhD in law from the University of Virginia. He currently chairs the Center for Health Law and Bioethics at Ono College in Israel and is a professor at the University of Virginia School of Law. He is also a practicing surgeon at the Tel HaShomer Medical Center. Additionally, he is a member of the National Committee for Genetic Research in Humans and a member of the National Advisory Committee on Genetic Information. He specializes in biotechnology, patients' rights, and comparative medical ethics. I am honored to present our next speaker, Dr. Segal.
Just get the lights right. Hopefully you can hear me. Deborah, can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. All right. So I will actually be talking about something else, and that is the way that we regulate technology and biotech. I've heard the previous speakers, and I was very impressed by the ability today really to propel ideas from the tables of students all the way to the patient's bedside. And in my role as both a lawyer, an academic in the legal sphere, and academic in the ethical sphere, I'm privileged to see those bright minds at work. But my role here is to walk you through the way we in Israel look on those ideas from an ethical perspective. So in other words, you can come up with a great idea. Just ask the following question. A guy comes with an idea that he's gonna develop a special shampoo that if you use this shampoo before intercourse, you'll have a higher chance of having boys. That's the blue one. But if you use the pink one, you're gonna have a higher chance of having girls as the result of that interaction. Now he wants to do the research. Would that research be accepted by the IRB? So if you answer in the positive, that means that you don't see any ethical problem with the idea, with the concept, and with the result of that kind of research. I use that example because I'm happy to be the chairperson of the Israeli National Committee on non-medical sex selection of embryos. So in Israel, there is a special process. So you see that while science can actually do that today, science can actually today choose for the embryo and the gender of its child. Right now, we have put that under a scrutiny, and there's a whole process to make that happen. And if you want, we'll touch on this topic later on. Now, from Jewish to Israeli bioethics and medical law, that's a whole course semester. So if that's something you're interested, maybe the people that look into the curriculum reach out to me and we can make that work. But right now, I'm just going to do a short intro to how that thing, the idea of Israeli bioethics developed. We have a project called Blue and White Bioethics. Blue and white stands for the flags, the colors of the flags of Israel. And I will try to make that thing palatable, easy for you to understand. And I will start by the bottom line. Israel occupies a middle space between the United States and Europe in resolving ethical and legal questions that are the results of the progress in medicine and in biology and genetics and the health and the life sciences. So there's a unique position, and as I was told, I was in a conference in Europe, and they were discussing about some sort of resolutions to the stem cell debate, and suddenly the chairperson, and I was just part of the audience at that point, at that specific session, but then they stopped and said, wait a second, we talked about Germany, Belgium, UK, Australia. We need to hear what happens in Israel. Anybody from Israel here? Who says, I'm from Israel. And I'll give you the Israeli perspective on stem cell research. So yeah, Israel has a particular view on things. And while I can show you and deliberate the results, I believe that is less important. What's more important is the underlying principles that actually dictates the end results. What's moving pieces in the Israeli health law and bioethics sphere that will make you understand the reason the result came out to be the way it is. For those of you who are interested in biotech, for those of you who are interested in coming up with medical devices, so you need to understand the mindset of the Israeli regulator, the Israeli IRB, the research review boards, the ethics committee, in order to move forward. It will be kind of useless or pointless to invest a lot of money and time and effort in a project that will never fly if you are about to move it into the Israeli, through the Israeli biotech industry. So you need to have a good understanding of what will fly and what won't. And that is the purpose of this presentation. So let's move on. Devorah, moving on, if that's okay with you. All right. So let's move to this presentation mode. Do you see the next slide? All right. So this is Israel and at daytime, and this is at night, and you see the light. All the light is coming for the Center for Health Law and Bioethics at Ono College, day and night, working on resolving the ethical issues that are coming with the serious questions that the scientists and inventors are coming up with new ideas, and how we can match their demands on the one hand, but echoing the legal, ethical, social, religious, historical perspective that play in. A word about Israel, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, but we now have passed the 9 million number of our inhabitants. Some over half are what we call secular Jews with a light or non-religious influence. There's around less than 2 million that identify as Orthodox Jews. In the 90s, a huge influx of the former Soviet Union, the USSR, into Israel. And again, it's a different mindset. It's a different attitude. It's a different way of thinking. And we have some 20% of the population that is Arab, Muslim, Christians, Druze, Turks, and others. So this, just to show you a beautiful melting pot, and that's why we moved from Jewish ethics to Israeli bioethics, because yes, Judaism can encompass and can be a very important driving force, but we also have to attune to other influences as well. On the other hand, we have the academia demography. Academia in Israel changed dramatically in the 30s to the 50s. That was very powerful European influence, German, UK, France. Not anymore. In the 60s, 70s, major Americanization of our legal institutions and our medical institutions. All Israeli doctors get trained by US textbooks. All the senior doctors have their fellowships in the United States. So a major influence of from Western Europe moved into influence from North America, and that has shaped part of the discussion as well. And finally, Israel is a unique place. It's both by our constitutional values, by the Declaration of Independence. We just celebrated Yom Ha'atzmaut 2 days ago. So Israel is a Jewish and democratic state. So these two very powerful influences will shape our resolutions. So what are the interests and values in Israel? So if you ask an American, if you ask a European person what will be his values, you will get a somewhat different layout. This is the layout that Israeli society holds strong to. And this is shared by all sectors in Israel. Even though we have this amalgam of ideas, this is something that is very powerful in Israel. And the first interest, and above all other interests, above all, is the sanctity of life and human dignity. Below that, we'll have other interests, but I want to put this very strongly. Sanctity of life and human dignity is number one. Why? How do you see that? Well, just to show you the famous fight over the hunger strikes of prisoners, some of them Palestinians, some of them terrorists, some of them non Palestinian, but still coming up with the idea. They're doing a hunger strike, and the question was, can the state treat them once they pass out? We don't touch them, we don't abuse their privacy, the body integrity, but once they pass out, can you treat them? Some of them, I don't know if you can read Hebrew, but this guy says, I'm fasting for 82 days. Those of you who know medicine know that this is completely impossible. So a hidden camera shows this guy taking a small snack before going to the camera saying, well, I'm on a hunger strike and so on and so forth, of course. But nevertheless, this was deemed by the Knesset, by the parliament, and both by the Supreme Court of Israel as non-acceptable strike, because sanctity of life is the number one principle. So yes, once you pass out and you can no longer object, the state will save your life even against your expressed wishes. Why is that? There's peer pressure in those prisons. They're getting the wrong incentives, and all those ideas about autonomy would surrender to the greater idea of a retroactive consent. And you see the guy's response once he was awakened. There's no question that he is clearly happy that his life has been saved. So according to the Israeli Patients' Rights Law, clause number 15, if we can anticipate that after we save the person's life, he will be grateful, he will be in a position to acknowledge a retroactive consent, it is completely acceptable to treat him against his expressed wishes. And we do that today in many options. So for example, if somebody commits suicide, he will be treated. If someone is now in a position where a minor procedure can save his life, that can be done. 3 doctors need to sign that this is a minor procedure and his life can be saved. On the other hand, make no mistake, you cannot force care on a terminally ill patient. You cannot force care that is futile, that will not change the prognosis of the patient. So they have this utility balance. And if you want, we can talk about that later on in the session of on the Q&A session. So sanctity of life, human dignity is important. So important that yes, because the idea that we can save life is so important, Israel was the pioneer into accepting the idea of, for example, stem cell research, because stem cell research was regarded as a way to save lives while preserving dignity, because according to Jewish law and according to Muslim law, life does not begin at conception. Life begins later on. So if the stem cells are harvested at an earlier stage, we do not defy human dignity, and we have the chance of saving lives. So the imperative of saving life is a very powerful way to propel, to push forward new ideas of patient care and treatment that will abolish suffering and unnecessary death. Below the sanctity of life and human dignity, we can talk about autonomy and the right for self-determination, which clearly, like in the Western idea, in the Western world, a patient has a right to control his life. He's a master for his decisions, and autonomy dictates, and we should respect that as long as he does not harm others. Stuart Mill's famous ideas about the harm principle. And we saw that very nicely in the COVID pandemic, where we were limiting people's autonomy for the greater good. So yeah, it's okay if you want to go without a mask, but we need to wear a mask because that can harm others. So the ability to curtail the autonomy principle based on the greater good is something very important. And again, we'll talk about it later on if we have enough time. The third principle that is very relevant to the session is the idea that there's a religious, but also social right / obligation that tackles the procreation. It's a concept that Israel has very strongly adhered to. Israel is the #1 country in the world, number country in the Western world of children per family. Right now, we're into the 3.2 number, and we observant families, the number is around the 4.6. So we see this very strong social idea that having kids is fun. Israel is the #1 country with IVF clinics per capita, the #1 country in the world with IVF cycle. We had the previous speaker was an OBGYN, so you can attest to that. So it's a thing. But why am I bringing this to the biotech of this session here? For one reason, everything that deals with procreation will be looked on favorably in Israel. Because if it's there to help, if it's there to take away the issue of infertility, very interesting to this community. And discussion about Dor Yesharim, I'm sure you've heard about the legal ethical issues with Dor Yesharim, is a fine example for that. Because this is a way to have a safer procreation process. So premarital genetic screening is basically taking the power, the might of genetics and making it work for the procreation right or a religious obligation. And these are the numbers. This guy doesn't seem too happy, but basically procreation is a fun thing in Israel. Yiladim ze simcha. That's the famous quote we use in Israel. And I use this picture to show you only in Israel. I gave a lecture the other day at Kiryat Ono for the speech therapist. You know, I'm an ENT surgeon, so they asked me to speak about the ethical aspects of deafness and speech problems. So I gave them a whole day of course, and they asked me, can a pregnant woman or can new mothers bring their children for breastfeeding? I said, sure. Now, if I want to, this is how the class looked like. Now you cannot see that, not in Norway, not in France, not even in Massachusetts, I believe. So it's very different. It's very unique to the Israeli population. And again, you see, this is a mixture. This is religion, non-religion people. There's Muslim students. This is part of our society. And everybody is lenient about it. It's okay to bring a child to school. It's okay to breastfeed during class, and so on and so forth. The fourth point that I want to point out is the idea of the community, the importance of others, the greater good. Now, COVID pushed that stronger, but before the COVID, when I was speaking to the American audience or even European audience, it didn't really echo. What do you mean, the greater good? So I told them about Israel and the wars and terror and the need for gmilut chasadim and tzedakah and the kibbutz. These are all ideas that come from the notion that me as an individual is one layer, but there's another layer that is very, very important. I think now after COVID, people get it. the importance of the community. But in Israel, the community is a very strong thing. So when we're talking about bioethics and healthcare law, the idea that our ideas will either help or might decrease the cohesion of the greater good is something to be thought about. For example, when we were discussing the Israeli national health system and the national health insurance, well, in Israel, you pay per your monthly income, 4.8% of your monthly income. So that's how you pay. But what do you get? You get as much as you need. So there's a complete detachment between what you pay and what you get for. And we see this as a cross subsidiary and an idea of tzedakah. We all chip in for others who are in a greater need. And this is shared by both religious and non-religious part of the society. Again, remember, Jews, non-Jews, all in the same boat. And finally, the last point I'd like to discuss is enhancing science and technology. Israel, as you must have heard, is we call it a startup nation and goes both IT, but also medical and life sciences startups and the ecosystem here. And this is because Israelis are keen on technology and science. Now you can ask yourself why. What's at work here? Why Israelis are so keen on science and technology? So you can find extrinsic and intrinsic value to science and technology, and you can think about the results of our not so bright past in the last 2,000 years, repeated pogroms, bloodshed, the Holocaust, of course. So there's a physical existentialism aspect to it, because science is, in a way, another tool to guarantee the progress and the sustainability of the Jewish people. And therefore, it's highly respected and traditionally auto-regulated. Very important. Are we going to let scientists do their own thing? Or is there a tension between society and science? If you look into Europe, you see a lot of clashes between scientists and society. If you look at the United States, the Berman clinics that do abortions, they cut on funding for stem cell research. All that is not at all part of the Israeli discourse. We don't have that at all. Usually science and society are more or less aligned, and there's a lot of trust between the scientists and doctors and people of medicine on the one hand, and society and social institutions. So that's a good thing. Also pushing the value of science and technology is the consumer attitude coming from the United States, most powerfully. Yes, we like gadgets. It's cool, but it's also making our lives better, and it's okay. In Jewish philosophy, there's no such thing as frown upon, are you playing God concept. There's no such thing. Yes, we are here to improve creation. It's part of the Jewish heritage. And that's why we do Brit Milah, that's why we do the bris on the 8th day, because God could have made us already with the Brit Milah. But God says, no, I'm doing the world for one, and you will make it even better. So it's okay. We have to keep on the religious tenets. But nevertheless, playing God is not an issue in Jewish philosophy. And if you read Rabbi Tendler's Zatzal books and Rabbi Steinberg's and my papers, Lavdil, you can find the idea there very powerfully. And finally, Torah is the prime education mission, and we highly regard people that are in the learning business. So science is part of the ethos of learning and education. So that's why biotech people, scientists will not meet resistance usually in Israel. I think that I have 5 minutes to to finish before Devorah kills me. So I will just put on the table the following slide. Devorah, do you see the slide between the US and Europe? Do you see the slide?
Yeah, wait, did you change it?
I just changed. What do you slide you see right now? What do you see right now?
The gray slide. Principles of bioethics.
Okay, so US and Europe. Good, so you see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see, look at the American ideas of bioethics. Look into the European ideas of bioethics. So in America, autonomy, individualism, very important. Beneficence, you need to do good to your patients. Non-maleficence, don't do bad to your patients. And justice, share the burdens and the benefits evenly. Supposedly, this is all coming from Bishop and Childress books of bioethics. The 6th edition just came out, I believe, or should come out in these days. The European, they're okay with some principle, but they put higher the human dignity, solidarity, which was completely lacking from the principle of American principle of bioethics, and the precaution principle. I want to spend 5 minutes on that. The precaution principle says that not everything that is new is a good thing. So, European would still cherish chairs from Louis XIV, as opposed to the high-tech chairs that we can sell in Manhattan. All right, so the precaution says we want to make sure that your new ideas will not create a major problem to the ecosystem, to the environment, so on and so forth. So the Greenpeace ideas, the Greens is a very powerful movement in Europe, not so powerful in the United States until recent years. Maybe California, the West Coast is pushing that, but wasn't that powerful in Europe. For years and years, they're really concerned about the environment and the precaution principle. Are our interventions harmful to the world? And this Jewish bioethics lately kind of resonate with that, with the Tikkun Olam idea, which are important. But as you see, these are the principles in Europe and the USA. Well, Israel occupies, like I said, an interim position in that stance. So how does Jewish law comes into place? So contemporary rabbis repeatedly endorse new technologies as long as they meet the standards that I put forth before. The collective action that enhances welfare are highly appraised. So, for example, Dor Yesharim is a beautiful project, envisioned and executed by a non-scientist person, Rabbi Eckstein. Nevertheless, a very wonderful tool for the collective greater good, using, like I said, high-end genetic technology. The sacred set of human body does not include genetic information, so it's okay to use genetic information for example, the Dor Yesharim project to create a safer place for procreation, marriages, and so on and so forth. And the betterment of creation, like I said, it's a meritus quis, no problem with playing God. Finally, about Jewish law and bioethics, the world's image of Judaism is a crucial parameter. When the cloning debate became a real debate after Dolly the sheep and stem cell research, when rabbis were consulted, should we endorse this technology? One of the questions they asked after going through all Jewish law and Jewish philosophy and Jewish ideas was, wait a second, but what is the rest of the world thinking? Because we have to make sure that we don't have Chilul Hashem, that with our resolutions, we don't come up with something that will give the nations a reason to criticize Judaism and, in that sense, call Chilul Hashem. So, for example, with human cloning, even though by halacha it's probably okay, the rabbi says, for the time being, we should not move on with that because this might create a bad image of Judaism in today's very transparent, connective world. So hold and wait. So for stem cell research, UK said, okay, good for us. We're not the only one doing that. So there's this cautionary perspective, not because intrinsic problems, but from extrinsic, like I said, Chilul Hashem issues. I think I'm going to stop. I'm going to run through. I had some points I want to talk, but we'll just keep this for another time. And I will just come up with a final idea to wrap my discussion on stem cell research. Why was Israel a pioneer in stem cell research? For the following reason. Sorry. Israel was a pioneer in the stem cell research for the following reason. Where is it? Okay. Sanctity of life, clearly something that can be gained. It fits very nicely to the knowledge science aspect of promoting these ideas in the Israeli society. It clearly helps the procreation quest. It reflects the autonomy of patients are willing to donate their samples, willing to allow the research to move forward on the one hand, and allowing those patients who would like to make use of it their chance of having a better, healthier life. And like we said, knowledge and science and betterment of creation on both sides of the autonomy sphere. And autonomy, remember, also important, the autonomy of researchers. That's something we also cherish in Israel. So with these final words, I want to thank you all for taking time to listen to my talk. I want to thank the organizers for letting me voice my ideas. And if you have interested in that, Blue and White Bioethics, it can be found online. I'm at the Ono College, and my emails can be easily found online, Siegel, S-I-E-G-I-L. And I'm more than happy. You have 1 minute to take some questions from the audience if you want to. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonah Tripp, and I am the Vice President of the YU Medical Ethics Society. Thank you all for joining this conference today, and thank you, Dr. Segal, so much for taking the time to share your important words with us. Our next speaker is Rav Yosef Tzvi Rimon, an internationally acclaimed posek, author, and educator. Rav Rimon is the Chief Rabbi of Gush Etzion and the Rav of Alon Shvut South. Rav Rimon is also the Rosh Yeshiva of Lev Academic Center and the founder and chairman of Sulamot and Laofek, dedicated to providing proper education and supplying job security throughout Israel. Through leadership, grace, and wisdom, Rav Rimon has and continues to play a pivotal role in shaping the contemporary Jewish world. We want to thank Rav Rimon for his time and for his continued effort towards building a healthier and brighter Jewish future in our Jewish homeland.
Shalom lechulam. I'm very happy to be here with you. Can you hear me properly? It's so special that although all the bad things of COVID, at least we learned that we can be together from far away, lots of people together, and it's exciting that we can speak all together in such a beautiful system. I would like to speak today on artificial meat and maybe to focus also on artificial chicken. I'll share PowerPoint. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint? Okay. So we are working in Mada Toratecha. We're working on lots of things that connected to science, but things of the future, such as AI, such as autonomic cars, and also artificial meat. And I would like to share short. I won't be able, it would be hours to see all the sugiyot. If you want to see them, we wrote a booklet that brings all the sugiyot, all the places in the Gemara, Rishonim, Achronim that maybe can touch our subject, and you can see them also in our website and also in this booklet. And I'll try just to focus on the main issues of artificial meat. Also, today, it's not so easy to eat meat. There are lots of processes, lots of stages that we have to pass till we eat the meat. We have to find the right shoichet, and we need to check the knives, and the shechita should be in the right system. And we have to check that there's no treif in the lamp, in other places. Lots of things that are complicated also today. But the world is concerned because the world is going to grow, and it seems that in few years will be a big problem to give meat for everyone, and it will be very expensive. And also because of Tsar Baalei Chaim and other issues. So already years ago, beginning in Holland and other places, the world tries to create artificial meat. In artificial meat, we have biopsy, that we take something, we'll speak on it in a minute, but small quantity from the animal. From this, we have to take the stem cells, in Hebrew, ta'ei, geza. We put them in bioreactor, and we grow it in the same system that it would grow in our body. We grow it in a lab, and in the end, we have meat. There are a few questions that we have to deal in our subject. First question, I'm reading now from the right to the left. First question is, can we take it from a non-kosher animal? We have a rule, hayotze min hatameh tameh. If we take something from a tameh, from a non-kosher animal, so it's not kosher. In our case, we say that maybe it's so small you can't see it in your eyes. Maybe we take it in systems that we say that it's not at all a part of the animal. Can it be okay? The other question is, when we take it out also from a kosher animal, if we take it when the animal is alive, we have a question of ever min achai. We mustn't take something from the animal when it's alive. So can we take, also if we take a kosher animal, can we do this biopsy from the animal when it's alive? The third issue is, if we are able to do it in some systems, is it fleishik or maybe pav? Can you have together cheese and meat from artificial meat to eat it together? We have just to explain that although the system to create the meat is by lab and not natural, but the result in the end should be exactly one by one. It's not like buying today something that you buy that is very similar, the same taste of meat. Here we are speaking on something that one by one, exactly the same genes, everything exactly like regular meat. And is it part? Or maybe no, fleshy. So this is another question. And another question is, when you take the stem cells, you are putting it, as I said before, in a bioreactor. But when you put it in, you have something that it grows with it. Usually they were using serum that it's from blood. And there were lots of discussions. Maybe because of this, the meat won't be kosher. Lots of articles were written on this artificial meat, and they were dealing with this serum, but the world changed, and especially because of Israelis that invented something, but in the end, the world changed, and today they are using not serum, but a plant that based notorious, something that is from not from the chai, but from tzmachim, something that is vegetarian, and this problem does not exist anymore. There are other questions here on chametz, Pesach, other things that we have to deal. If it's in Israel, do we have questions of Tumot u'Maasrot? But this is not a problem. This is something that we know that today this problem is solved. It seems that it should be very easy to create this meat, because you can take a kosher animal, you can do shchita, most kosher shchita that you would like to do, and then do the biopsy. Do it straight away. We can do it in the right way that it will be useful. But it's not easy. In the world, there are lots of places that they want something to be just vegetarian, nothing that we kill any animal. And lots of places of Tzar Baalei Chaim and other organizations in the world, they say, no, we want something that no behema was killed, shchita. The kosher organization would say, what do you care? You are shoichet one behema, and from this you can supply meat for years. But still, this is a question that it's not so easy, because the companies want to do something that is good for everyone, and they would like to do it from something before shchita. So, is it okay? And we have a few systems how to create this meat. I'm reading now from the left one. So one system will be biopsy from a living animal. And this is the system that was the most popular in the world till lately. And here we have to ask ourselves, is it okay according to halacha? There is another system that, as I said, that maybe kosher Jewish people, kosher would prefer it, that this will be from animal after shchita. Maybe there's another suggestion to do it in ben pakuah. See in the bottom, I won't speak now on ben pakuah. It's not to do dozens of ben pakuah. We need one. And from this, we'll create those things. Maybe it's another solution that maybe can be easier. I'm going now to the middle slide. There is another system of shtifat ubarim, embryonic extrication, and the shtifat ubarim. This is something that you do in the first days when the animal is pregnant. In the beginning, the first few days, and we have to ask ourselves, maybe it's easier. Maybe when you do it in the beginning, not like it was years ago, straight in the beginning, just from the, like the water of the beginning of the, when the animal is pregnant, maybe it's okay. We have another system that in Israel, Tnuva is doing it and other places to do it from placenta, Shilia. And this is easier. This is easier because this is something that, according to lots of systems, we can eat it. It's much easier system. And there is another very popular system today, a new one, quite new one, to do it from an egg, fertilized egg. And in a minute, we'll have to deal with it. In Israel, there's a big company that is dealing with artificial chicken, and they do it from an egg. Is it okay? We have another system that years ago, Rav Tendler wrote about it, also before anyone thought to do it in reality. And this is to use permitted animal body parts. And this system can be all by using parts of the animal that maybe they don't need shchita, maybe they're okay to take hair, to take other things, nails, to take things that maybe don't need shchita. But we have also another system, and this system takes the genes and does reprogram. You can take a gene from milk, you can do reprogram, like restart, and bring it back to be tazera, to be stem cells. And then you can make from it meat. You'll make meat from milk. You'll take milk, you'll take the gene, you'll do a reprogram, and then you'll create from this meat. Is it kosher? Is it meat? Pav? And today, although we have things that we can create it, but the world is not ready yet. And there are other reasons that the world is more frightened of this system. So meanwhile, this is not a system. And the most popular systems are the system that I said before, and the system of embryonic extrication, that this is a very famous system that works now in Rehovot, in Israel, and other places in the world. And also, as I said, that Tnuva works with the placenta. But I want to deal now with the new system of the egg, of fertilized egg. Before we go to the egg, I just want to say shortly that the main questions about the other systems that we said right now. So I'm reading here from the left. There are systems that think that that this is something that is not allowed, is not permitted, because what we are doing is we are taking something from the body of the animal, we are taking it when it's alive, and we are doing exactly the same like Kadosh Baruch Hu did. He did it naturally in the body of the animal, and we are doing it in a lab. And maybe if it's not kosher, if you took it from a live animal, also if it's a kosher animal. So then also if it's something that you can't see that you did exactly the same thing what you did in a lab, and maybe because of this, it won't be permitted. And this is an option. And there are poskim that think in this way, and there are sugyo that maybe we can explain in this way. But there are other systems that they say, no, I'm reading in the middle now. It's Maya be'alma, because it's something that you can't see in your eyes. It's from the beginning, the first 40 days, the Gemara says it's like Maya be'alma, like mere water. Something like this, it's like water, and it's not at all something that meat, it's something like water. Maybe another option that it's peresh be'alma, it's something that it's not at all a part of the animal. And we have sugya in the Gemara on this, Chale Rachmuta, doesn't matter now. Maybe because all the process is like a miracle process, it's not natural. Maybe because of this, it doesn't consider at all as meat. All this is connected to the system that we spoke before of shtifat uvarim, of embryonic extrication. But as I said, we have today a big company in Israel that works on chicken, and they create it from an egg. It's very interesting, you know, articles that were written 2 years ago sometimes are not, you can't use them anymore because things change so quickly. How do they do it from an egg today? What do they do from an egg? So you can see here, they take from the egg, they take in the first or second day, they take also like a stem cells that I said before, it's in the beginning. And when they take it now, everything here is yellow. It's an egg that can grow to a chick, but they take it from the yellow of the egg. This is no problem. You can eat it. This is no problem. But they can create the meat in this system, no problem, but it won't have the taste of the meat. And because of this, they need to add also, in the third day, also another stem cells, and this is from the red of the egg. We mustn't eat the red of the egg because the red of the egg is like the beginning of the chick. Rikum shel efroach, the Gemara says. But they take the white from the red. Maybe when you take the white from the red, maybe this is okay. Maybe this is permitted. Now, I have to say, if we would have time, we would go over all the sugiyot. We would read all the systems of explaining the Gemara. And as I said before, this we wrote already in our booklets. I won't repeat it, but I want to tell you, when you read our booklet, when you read all the sources that I just mentioned, you can see that every source you can explain also to hater and also to issue. Everyone you can explain, you can say, okay, maybe this is something that we can see that it will be mutar and it will be okay, because we'll say, as I said before, it's Maya Be'alma, it's the beginning of the first 40 days, and maybe it has a bitul, and as I said, maybe it's not a part of the meat. Lots of things that we can say in those sugiyot. But each sugya we can explain also to the other way. And we can say, no, it's, although it's the first 40 days, what does it matter? It's a part of the animal. Also, if we say it's Maya Be'alma, but it's a part of the animal. And we'll say it's not connected at all to bitul. In bitul, you take one stem cells, you take it and you will put it in lots of others, and then you say, okay, this is batel berov. But in our case, you don't take one and you say it's batel. You take one and the same thing that you take divides to two and grows from this more and more and more and more from the first one. So maybe it's not bitul at all. And maybe because the result is like meat, we have to consider it exactly like meat. All the sugyot really are giving us directions, but because it's a new thing, so new, you can explain it also this way and also that way. So what do you do? So first of all, I have to say there are people that are afraid all the time when we have new solutions, new science solutions. They say, oh, what we will do? I'm not afraid. I believe in the way of Rav Kook, that thinks that the word of Kodesh Baruch Hu, of Hashem, all the time is in a process. It gets worse, better and not worse. When we have lots of new tools, we have to lead them in the right way. If we won't do it, the same tools, you can destroy the world. And we know in our world, lots of things, the tools that they can save lives of people can also destroy lives. But we believe that in the end, all those things are bringing the world to a better way. And I believe that also this artificial meat would bring us and the world to a better place. Rav Kook spoke about the future that once the world won't kill animals anymore. They'll eat vegetarian once. We know that today when we do shchita, it's okay. It's musar, it's morality. If the Torah told us it's okay, it's okay. But if we'll have the ability that the world could eat meat and won't need to kill animals, wow, of course it's good. And also according to halacha, let's say that you take something after shchita in the best way, so it will be much better than today. Because today you can do shchita of mehadrin, but lots of places are not in the standard of mehadrin. They are okay because it's very complicated. And you can't decide that half of the meat you chuck out. It's complicated. And you say, okay, and this will be making, and this will be making like this. You can create one, the first one that will be mehadrin after shchita of all the systems of OU and Badat Saida Haredit and Rav Lando and Ravanut, everyone. And from this to create meat for 10 years. So we have the ability to do things that will be much better also according to halacha. But maybe also if we do it from biopsy maybe in the beginning of the first days of the animal, or we will do it from the egg. As I said before, maybe it is okay. We are not sure. We have all the time to check and to try to find the best solutions. And the egg is a solution that maybe can be okay, and maybe other solutions that that we said before that can be okay. Maybe the placenta, maybe other things. And maybe I'll take let's take it off. It doesn't matter now. I just want to take. Stop sharing, okay? And I think that we have to know how to deal in a suffix. You know, in the articles, you can see half of the rabbis that are certain that the meat is kosher, it's pav, no problem. The other half, they say, no, it's no kosher. No. And really, we can't prove. It's not black and white. We can't really prove. And on one hand, we have to try all the time to find the best solutions. And mehadrin in meat, glat, mehadrin, let's say, glat will be just something or after shchita or maybe from other solutions that I said before that maybe can be the best. But maybe will be other solutions that will say that maybe they can be okay, and better, maybe better even from the alternative today of lots of places of meat. In Israel, we have few levels, not of mehadrin, but maybe of regular meat, and maybe this can be something that can be okay. I don't think that ever will allow to eat non-kosher meat. Will never allow to eat chazer or something like this. Someone came to me, a journalist, and said, why, what's the problem? Also if it looks like chazer, so what's the problem? If it's not meat, it's not meat. I told him, you know what? If you say it's no problem and the result doesn't matter, are you ready that will serve meat from human being? Also, this is not meat, but we'll take from human being and we'll serve schnitzel, we'll serve meat. He said, okay, let me think about it. It's not so easy, and I don't think that those things will be ever permitted. We have to think, if we consider it as meat of pav, I don't think that ever will allow to cook artificial meat with milk. But if we'll say it's suffix, so maybe we'll say we don't allow to cook it with meat, and maybe not to eat it with meat, but maybe we consider it like fish. That will say, okay, maybe afterwards you can have milchik. Maybe this can be something that can be okay. And I think that we'll have to deal with this sugya also in Anava, that we have a suffix, that we are not sure. Not everything, and if we're not sure, so then we say, okay, we can't take a risk. We can't take a risk. If we are not sure, we can't take a risk, and we have in the Oraisa to know we are machmir, and especially in all the mehadrin, especially in all the mehadrin, to say we are taking now just something that we are certain that this is 100% with no sfekot. But if we are not sure 100%, say, okay, maybe there are things that will be safek derabanan, maybe those things will allow in other kashrus that maybe it's better than the alternative today. There are things that we'll have to deal with them. And in the bottom line, I say we mustn't be afraid. We have to know the word of Kodesh Baruch Hu is all the time leading us to a better world. So we won't be afraid. We'll be careful. When you deal with halacha, you do it carefully, but not panicked. We know we're in a good way. We'll do it in the right way. I see Rav Genek here that is going to speak and stand now also on, or you spoke before, I don't know, on this subject. And I know also how the OU takes it so seriously and does. And Bezrat Hashem, together, Am Yisrael, all the rabbis that deal in kashrus in the CS way will succeed to find the right way also to do the high average of Mehadrin and maybe also the basic things for other people. There are things that will be permitted, but there are things we won't allow. Be'ezrat Hashem, that will succeed together to eat the best kosher meat, but also to keep and to bring the world all the time to be better and better. Be'ezrat Hashem, shetiyeh hatzlacha lechulam.
Thank you so much, Rav Rimon, for joining us all the way from Israel and for sharing your insights with us. We really appreciate it. My name is Liba Weiss, and I am the Vice President of the YU Medical Ethics Society. For our final speaker, we have the zchus of hearing from one of our Roshei Yeshiva, Rabbi Menachem Genack. Rabbi Genack currently serves as the CEO of Kashrus at the OU, as well as the Rav of Congregation Shomer Emunah in Englewood, New Jersey. In addition to being a guiding light for many Smicha students at REITs and Turo, Rabbi Genack is also the author of numerous books on halacha and hashkafa. It is now my pleasure to call upon Rabbi Genack.
Thank you very much, Liba. And for me, it's a real pleasure to be able to follow Rabbi Rimon, who is really one of the extraordinary models for our community in terms of what a Rav should be, both in terms of his depth in halacha, but starting at the beginning of his career even, in terms of his concern for every Jew, and not just concern, but his active involvement. And it really is, what he's done is just extraordinary. So I'm actually going to speaking about the similar topic, sometimes come to different conclusions, but we have been communicating about this as well. So let me just begin why this is so important. When we slaughter, at least for example, first the OU Shechita, we average about a 40% kosher rate. And 60% goes into the non-kosher market. And the 40% kosher rate is only giving you the half the animal, because we in general don't use the chelek hacharayim, the hindquarters. Many communities don't use it because there's an issue of chelev and kiranosha. So we're really taking away 20% of the animal. If we could develop this technology, which Rabbi Rimon has, delineated, we would conceptually get 100% kosher rate, because we would take an animal and we would only use an animal that's, glat, completely kosher. We would take the stem cells from the forequarter, from the front, ignoring the hindquarter, and that which would be, subsequent generations of these stem cells would produce 100% kosher meat. So the advantage is on several levels. First of all, on the economic advantage in terms of the cost of kosher. Kosher is actually, non-kosher meat is much cheaper than kosher meat. And that there are lots of reasons for that, but simply non-kosher has the economy of scale. I've also delineated for you just now the economics of it in terms of only using 20%. So that would have a very positive impact on the kosher consumer. The other thing is more generally, cattle has a significant carbon footprint. And this would limit the amount of cattle that had to be used in terms of producing meat. So in terms of climate change and global warming, it has a very positive impact. So as Rabbi Rimon, discussed the technology, essentially what they do is they take a stem cells from an animal and they propagate it in, first in a laboratory environment, and then ultimately as it grows in an industrial environment. The thing that I've noticed, we've been speaking to various companies, but all the companies we end up talking to, whether they're in Silicon Valley in California or they're in Israel, the technology and the people we're dealing with are Jewish, often Israeli scientists, which just tells us in general where Israel is in terms of growth of technology and how the world owes so much to that, to what Israel is doing in so many areas. But so let's talk for a moment about the status of of these stem cells? Well, as Rabbi Ramon mentioned, you can't just take stem cells from a non-kosher animal, or for some people have suggested from a chazan, because we have a general principle, yotzim asa, that which is derived from something that's not kosher is itself not kosher. And then there are also issues, as you mentioned, avim and achai. The Gemara, for example, even milk, which is derived, of course, from cattle, from a cow, the milk itself would not be permitted. It might fall under the category of avim and achai were it not for a special pasuk, Eretz Savas Cholav Udvash, that tells us that Cholav is permitted, is mutter. So, let's think about just a few topics. One topic is, do we categorize these? Let's say we go ahead with this. Is it to be considered pav, or is it considered meat? So, Rabbi Weiss, Usher Weiss, was of the opinion that this should be considered fallacious, because he says, as he said, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. And of course, if you were to analyze the synthetic meat, so-called synthetic meat or clean meat as it's called, its DNA is exactly the same as regular meat, and therefore it has all the properties of meat. So he thought it's considered meat. Rabbi Schechter thought that it's only fallacious midrabanan. In other words, since it's not, it didn't come from the normal source, maybe an animal that we slaughtered, but it's been transformed through this process, that might not be basar midiraisa. But he thought it's not just an issue of maris ayin. He thought that this would be considered like basar midrabanan, namely like psar of, for example, poultry. Chazal considered it midrabanan to be fallacious, and therefore you can't eat milk right after you eat chicken. So this would have the exact same status. So it would be not basar b'chol if we cooked with milk midiraisa, but it would be midrabanan. So in terms of relevant sources, the Gemara tells us in Menachos that Chitin Shioldu Ba'avim has a question about wheat that came from the clouds. So Tosis, different in terms of what the Gemara means, but Tosis says that we're talking about that they came derech nes, miraculously, and the Gemara has a question whether this wheat can be used in most Vosechem for whether this meat can be used, these chitim, this wheat can be used for the shtei halechem. It's considered mimosh Vosechem. But it's the only issue is because it has to come from Eretz Yisrael. But apparently everybody considers it to be chitin in terms of what it is. So, and similarly, we have a similar Gemara. The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that Reb Shimon ben Chalafta was Havika Ozal Ba'uchi is walking, Pokebo Hanach Arjasir Havika Nami La'apeh. There were these lions roaring. Ama Hakfirim Shoagim Lateref Nachisule Tarte Amtasa Chada Chlu V'Chada Shavkua. Aisva Asla B'Melaja Boy like Dava Tamahuze O Dava Tor. Amala Ain Dava Tama Yovin Min Hashemayim. In other words, he was sort of saved by this meat that came down from the Shemayim. And so in the Beis Medrash, they had a discussion whether this meat is kosher or not. But you see that nonetheless, even though it came derech nes from the Shemayim, it was still considered basar. So Usher wife quotes these Gemaras. You see that even if it's miraculously developed min hashemayim, that it's still considered basar since it has all the properties of basar, even though it wasn't generated from coming from a natural source, namely from the animal. I would also cite the Shalom HaKadosh quotes that Yosef HaTzadik, when he saw the Shvatim eating Evim and Achai, that's what, and he told this to his father, to Yaakov, but Yosef didn't know that that meat that they were eating was created from the Sefer Yetzirah miraculously, and therefore it's mutter. So you see, once again, if it's created through the Sefer Yetzirah, through some, miraculously, that it's not called Eva Min Achai. I should just cite one more source relative to this, one that many of you may know, that they say in the name of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, the Tzvi Pesach Frank quotes this, others quote it, Reb Zevin quotes it in the Sefer, that Reb Chaim said that what was, the Beis Yosef asked one of the most famous questions, why is the Hanukkah 8 days? After all, the miracle was only the last 7 days. The first day, there was enough oil to be lit. So Reb Chaim said that what happened was the miracle was each day that it didn't burn all the way down, that it only used 1/8 of the oil. And what normally naturally would have required 8 times that amount of oil. And Reb Chaim says it couldn't be that it was simply repropagated nace, shemen, because what's required is shemen zayis, and shemen shel nace is not called shemen zayis. So in terms of what its status is it fleishik midirais midrabanan? So the OU has taken the position that we're going to consider it as this, this develops, that we would consider it meat midiraisa, and therefore all the stringencies related to that, and also in terms of the hashkocha that would be required, since it's basa would require shouldn't be basa shinis alim, shouldn't be basa shinis alim in ha'ayin, that it will be it will require mashkiach tmidi at all times. But I spoke to Osher Weiss about one issue that I'd like to share with you, and then I want to get back to what Rav Rimon spoke about Maya B'Alma. But this is based on the psak. The Rambam. The Rambam says that the Rambam says that if down the bisra, which means these are like worms that come out of the meat. So that the Rambam says if it was a live animal and you shechted it, it's permitted. But if it's grew on the meat itself, right, that it's not permitted, and is considered and remains also. So the Rambam is in Perek Beis from Hilchos Machalos Asuros. I'll just read the lashon. Tolas animtze bebasa asura, aval dag she'etliya. But if it's fish that became wormy, hatolas muteres, and this is based on the Gemara in Chulin. But the Rambam holds that downy, the worms in the meat are also. And the reason is because it says because the shechita on the animal is matter these worms, the downy. However, fish that don't require shechita, they're mutter independently. So in terms of explaining this Rambam, I just want to quote that Rabbi Yaakov Kana Shapira, in his Sefer Navas Yaakov, he quotes from his relative, Reb Chaim Brisker. He asks a question like this. We know there's machlokes in the Bible whether uber yarech imo, or lav uber, or eno yarech imo. Namely, is the uber, the embryo in the mother, is it considered like part of the mother, like another limb or organ of the mother, or is it independent? And the halacha is if you shecht an animal that's pregnant, so the embryo is also mutter, and even after, if it survived and was born, it's prancing around, that really midiraisa doesn't require shrita. The shrita that's required is only midrabanan. So he asks, why do you need a special pasuk to tell us that halacha ben pekua if uber yerech imo applies, and it's part of the animal, the uber? So of course, just like the shrita was matter all parts of the animal, the rest of the basa was matter the uber as well. So that's the question that he asks. So he says that he thinks it's obvious of a poshut that if you would take a piece of meat that was shchuta, and from that you would create a new animal, that it would certainly require shchita. And because it would be considered like a completely new, a bria chadasha. So he says, as long as the uber is inside the mother, so then we say it's ge'echad mefarera. But after it's born, it's yotzil over ha'olam, so then it's considered an independent animal, and the shchita, if not, you need a special cost of kol shebehemet tochelu to tell us that it's mutter. And he quotes that he spoke to, he said that he spoke to his korev, and I'll just quote what he says, my relative, Hagon, Ha'emiti, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Shlita, Av Besen the Brisk, the Lita, Amashiesh Lahavi Smach, the Dvarai. He brings a proof because the Rambam says that Dani the Bisra, that if they developed after the Shechita, they're also, because then if it's after the Shechita, they're no longer considered an independent, that now if it's after the Shechita, they're considered independent and they're no longer related to the previous Shechita. So this is the question that I posed to Rabbi Weiss, that according to that Rambam, this technology wouldn't work, because this would be essentially the same, the way Reb Chaim explained it, as Dani de Bisra. You're taking these stem cells that are now separate from the animal and using them independent of the animal to grow them. And it would be the equivalent of the Dani de Bisra, the worms that were propagated after the Shechita. And the Rambam thinks that they're awesome. So that interpretation of the Rambam, that the Navas Yaakov quotes from Reb Chaim, I think, would be somewhat problematic. The thing that saves us is the Shulchan Aruch doesn't pass like that Rambam. So if if we go with the psak of the Shulchan Aruch, which we generally do, then that, this technology of using stem cells and growing them outside, since it's coming from an animal that's already geschochten, will be permitted. I just want to mention, so Rav Weiss had some other mahalchim, maybe to distinguish between the case of Dan and the Bisra, but he also said, well, it could be that, the tzad heter is, but this is the opinion of the Rambam. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't seem to paskin like this Rambam. There is one approach which I think is frankly completely wrong. Rabbi Rimon referenced it. Some people have written, and I think I'm raising it because in the context of the new Supreme Court ruling that seems to be, the draft that everybody's been speaking about. The Gemara says, as relates to an abortion, that if the abortion is done, the first 40 days of the development of the child, it's you wouldn't be chayiv for lo sirtzach or if it was a goy. It's because it's ma'ib. It's just water. In other words, it hasn't formed enough to be considered an uber. But I think that has absolutely nothing to do with this issue that we're talking about. When the Gemara speaks about ma'ib alma, it means to say, as relates to the halacha that's dealing with of the prohibition of doing abortion, of lo sirtzach, it's not dealing at all. Of course, it's not water. It means to say that the uber hasn't developed enough. And some people have even gone so far as to say, well, if it's ma'ib alma, you could even take stem cells at an early stage from a pig and, create a pig in this fashion, and that would be permitted as well. I think the association one to the next is simply simply wrong. The Gemara is only dealing with the loch of lo sirtzach and the prohibition, whatever of abortion, and it's saying that if the first stage of the pregnancy, which is very early, is the uber has not yet, it's not viable, hasn't developed enough. The Supreme Court, in Roe versus Wade, if they were looking for a standard in terms of abortion, that might be the right standard for what it should be considered. But that should be used in any way as a source to permit this program, I think is simply mistaken. But as I said, there are many reasons, and Rabbi Rimon has outlined them. It's a program that has enormous potential. In the tshuvas that we have, with Rav Weiss and Rav Schechter, both of them thought that this program would be permitted. But we were talking about taking stem cells from a slaughtered animal, not one that has not been slaughtered, because it would require shechita, or maybe creating a system which Rabbi Rimon also referenced of a ben pakur. A ben pakur again is an animal where the mother was slaughtered and the uber survived and now is alive. So there the shechita is. It may, if you take things from that, maybe the shechita would be permitted. We have to see whether that on a technological basis would, or simply in terms of the economy of size that would be required, whether that would work. But there are other things that Rabbi Rimon has suggested in terms of the eggs and all these other things that, as you said, have to be very carefully reviewed, which at Machon Lev they are doing, and the potential for this is, as I began at the very beginning, is extremely important. It's not that there are no question marks. There are many question marks related to it, but there may be solutions. It seems that there are solutions, but I think one thing we absolutely have to take off the table is this notion that you can just take from anything because it's my ba'alma. It's, I think, completely not relevant. I spoke to Rabbi Schechter about it. He also thought very strongly about that. I think my time is up, so I just want to mention, we're going through this crisis in a completely different way right now. Many of you know that the OU made a decision not to give an OU to synthetic plant-based pork. That is purely a marketing decision. marketing in the sense only means to say that we're trying to, be sensitive to the feelings, because many people, and that's specifically by pork, because this relates to chazah, there's a very strong, visceral reaction against something that looks like pork, it tastes like pork, even if it's completely plant-based. In Api Halacha, there really is nothing that's wrong with it. If it's that to say, the Gemara tells us in Chulin that Yalta said that everything that the Torah asks, or many things the Torah asks, we have the taste of it in a permitted fashion. The Torah asks dam, blood, and you can eat covered. You can eat liver that has a similar taste if it's properly prepared. And similarly, Moshe says even about chaza that there's a fish, called shibuta that has an identical taste to chaza or similar to chaza. So if we can find solutions that Api Halacha are correct, we should. And the approaches, some of them that Rav Rimon has mentioned, we're reviewing also at the OU, but the exciting thing is where technology has brought us, and especially in this age, it's really important. I was recently, this is actually right before the COVID, I was at a conference, and one of the things that this was, the scientists, they were talking about, this was, general conference, it was not the people presenting weren't Jewish, but what they were talking about, because of climate change and the shrinking amount of area and growing population, where are we going to get a protein? And they were talking about, that in the future, what we're going to have to look for is in terms of insects and so on. But this technology may be one of the solutions, play an important role in the growing crisis because of climate change, in terms of finding sources of protein and doing it in a fashion that doesn't impact negatively on the environment. So I'll stop here.
Thank you, Rabbi Genack. This marks the conclusion of our 15th Annual Medical Ethics Society Conference. Thank you to all the speakers and to everyone who joined us. We hope to see you all at our conferences in the coming years.